Hi everyone, I'm just going to walk you through this little assignment that we are doing in class together. And unfortunately, we are not able to divide you guys into groups and do the same type of activity that we're doing in class with this. So let me walk you through this particular assignment. So first, you're going to open up this file that is linked in our Canvas module as well as our slideshow. It's called Find Characterization and Conflict. And it's just reviewing a lot of the things that we have already learned about, but that people still seem to be struggling a little bit with. So we wanted to go back and make sure that we hit these things with you guys. So the top half of the page has to do with character analysis, and the bottom half has to do with conflict analysis. So you may want to pause this video and take some notes as I walk you through some things about direct characterization, indirect characterization. This blank spot right here is where you would write some definitions. And then down here, the same thing, internal and external conflict, you'll write some definitions. So if you need to pause this video, write down some things, and then keep going, feel free to do that. So we've just finished reading the story Fine by Margaret Peterson Haddix, and we're reviewing and focusing in on the character analysis of Bailey, who's our main character in the story. Remember last week we talked about the difference, or the week before last, we talked about the difference between direct and indirect characterization. Direct characterization is when an author in a story tells you directly what a character is like. So they might say the character is angry, or they might use words like Bailey was scared. That's direct. You don't have to figure that out because they directly tell you. So that's why it's called direct characterization, is they're not making you think, they are telling you right out something about the character. Indirect characterization is when you have to make an inference based on clues. Remember, we talked about the acronym STEAL. What characters say, what characters think, what characters, other characters, how they react. All of those things that characters do help us figure out things about them. So indirect characterization is when the author does not directly tell you something. You have to make an inference. And there's usually a lot more of those indirect characterizations in a story than direct characterization. You'll find some direct characterization sometimes in the beginning of a story in your exposition, and then the indirect characterization is throughout the rest of the story. So in the story Fine, how you would fill out this chart is you will go back into the story and find 3 examples of characterizations. One direct characterization, and you would copy down the quote from the story, and then answer this question: what does this tell us about Bailey's character? If it's a direct characterization, this quote and this answer will be almost identical. Then you have 2 indirect characterizations. So go back into the story and find an example of something that Bailey does, something that she says, something she thinks. Write that down in here, copy the quote from the story, and then what does that tell us about her character? Those are the 2 indirect characterizations. So that's how you would fill out the top part of this little chart. The bottom part is thinking a little bit more about conflict. We talked a lot about conflict a couple weeks ago when we read The Ravine, and we analyzed all of the conflicts that Vinny was dealing with. We talked about how there's internal conflict when a character is struggling with something in their mind. So it could be a tough decision, it could be a fear, it could be having to make a choice or not understanding something, but it's all inside their head. That's why it's called internal. External conflict is when you have a conflict between a character and something outside of their head. So a character and another character, a character and something in nature, or a character and a group of people like society. So as you analyze the conflicts in the story Fine, you have the chance to write down 3. Write down an example of an internal conflict that Bailey is dealing with. Actually 2 right here, and you would literally just copy a quote from a story, copy a line or 2 from the story that shows what is she struggling with. And then what is an external conflict? Something that's not in her head. She's got a lot of conflict going on in her mind, but there are some other conflicts that she has outside of her mind. So you would write down an example of one of those and then just circle. Is it a man versus man external conflict, man versus nature, or man versus society? And that's how you would fill out this particular form.